Scene 1. Sounds of the city at night, distant sirens, barking dogs, the rustle of wind. A melancholic melody plays in the background. Night enveloped a rundown neighborhood in a major city. Crumbling building facades, empty streets, and puddles reflecting dim streetlights set the scene. This place has long lost its vitality, but it's where the story of a young man named Jason begins. Jason is a typical courier. Every day, he pedals his old bike, delivering packages to make ends meet. His life is a constant grind, a battle for money, for a better future, and for his sick mother, who urgently needs medical care. His dream is simple: to save enough money to move his mother far away from this place to a peaceful life. But tonight, everything changes. Climbing the creaky stairs of an old apartment building, Jason picks up his final delivery of the night, a small package with an address pointing to a high-end nightclub downtown. He exhales deeply. Another risky night ride. Little does he know, this delivery will change everything. The contrast between his worn-down neighborhood and the glowing city center is stark. Outside the nightclub, luxury cars shine under the streetlights, and a neon sign flickers against the night sky. Security guards in black suits with earpieces stand by the door. Jason hesitates. Should he step inside? Summoning his courage, he enters. Inside, the nightclub is like a different world: neon lights, expensive furniture, and music that vibrates through his chest. Men in tailored suits holding drinks glance at him. It's not a world he belongs to. A stone-faced guard approaches. "What's in the package?" the guard asks gruffly. Jason hands it over, earning a brief nod in response. The guard points to a man in the corner who exudes authority, a tailored suit, a cigar in hand, and piercing eyes. Jason delivers the package, careful not to attract attention. But something feels wrong. He notices men in suits discreetly exchanging thick envelopes packed with cash. The air feels heavy, filled with a tension he can't ignore. Jason is nearly out the door when the guard calls him back. "Take this," the man orders, shoving an envelope into Jason's hands. "This isn't mine," Jason stammers, but the guard is already turning away, preoccupied. Confused, Jason takes the envelope and steps into the night. Alone on the dimly lit street, he opens it and freezes. Inside is an astonishing amount of cash. His heart pounds as he glances around. Did anyone see him? Did anyone notice? Overwhelmed and scared, he shoves the envelope into his backpack, hops on his bike, and speeds off. Back at the club, the guard mutters into his radio. "Mistake. The courier has the wrong package." Scene 2. The quiet of the night returns to the streets. But for Jason, this night will mark the beginning of the most dangerous challenge of his life. In his small apartment, Jason cannot sleep. In his backpack lies the envelope filled with money, an amount that feels like a fortune to him. He opens it repeatedly, staring at the bills, counting them, but a gnawing unease stirs in his chest. His first thought is to return the money. The next day, he plans to head back to the nightclub and explain everything. But everything changes when the phone rings. "Jason, the doctor said time is running out," his mother's voice trembles on the line. "Her treatment requires a massive sum. A life-saving operation, expensive medications, the costs are overwhelming and unattainable." He looks at the money once more. It no longer feels like a random burden. It's his chance to save the most important person in his life. His doubts fade. Jason decides to keep the money. Music shift, a tense undertone. Jason walks into his room, carefully stashing the money in a safe spot. Narrator, but not even in his wildest fears could he imagine what lay ahead. The following morning, Jason nearly drops his phone while scrolling through the news. A report details an incident near the nightclub. The body of a staff member has been found. Police suspect a gang-related killing. The anchor mentions a name Jason has only vaguely heard before: Victor the Boss. Victor is a criminal kingpin, a name that sends shivers down even the bravest spines. Jason now understands that he unknowingly took Victor's money. And the cost of this mistake could be fatal. Sounds of the city grow louder as the tension builds. Scene 3. Jason's phone starts blowing up with calls from unknown numbers. He feels like he's being watched. On the streets, unfamiliar faces linger a little too long, their eyes tracing his every move. Panic sets in. This isn't money. It's a death sentence, Jason thinks as he hurriedly packs a bag, preparing to disappear. But can he really escape? The moment he takes his first steps toward a new life, the shadow of Victor the Boss already looms over him. The camera shows Jason quickly leaving his apartment, glancing nervously over his shoulder. The street noise fades, replaced by a tense, fast-paced rhythm in the music. Narrator: he thought he could outsmart fate. But when it comes to people like Victor, the game always ends in death. Jason is desperate. He realizes the situation has spiraled out of control, and he can't handle it alone. His only hope is Chris, a childhood friend. Once a cop, Chris left the force, disillusioned by the corrupt system. Chris lives alone in a small, run-down apartment. When Jason arrives, their conversation is brief but tense. The camera focuses on Chris, a rugged face but kind eyes. He sits at a table, a cup of coffee in hand, listening intently to Jason. Chris advises him to return the money. He explains. People like Victor don't forgive mistakes. If you return the money now, you might have a chance to walk away alive. Jason hesitates. But soon, it becomes clear that even returning the money won't save him. Victor's men find Jason before he can act. They bring him to Victor himself, a cold, calculating man with a sinister smirk. Victor delivers his ultimatum. The money was just the beginning. Now you work for me. One job, and we're even. The camera shifts to Jason, sitting in a dimly lit room across from Victor. The atmosphere is heavy with tension, and Jason's hands tremble. The job seems simple enough: deliver a package. But Jason's instincts scream that it's a trap. He's given an address, a massive port where the package is to be handed over to a foreign buyer. Jason knows this is his only shot at survival and heads to the location. Sounds of the port, the clatter of shipping containers, the wail of ship horns. The camera follows Jason as he walks through the dark maze of warehouses, clutching the package. In the dimly lit port, Jason realizes he's been set up. The package is filled with drugs. It's a perfect plan to frame him as the scapegoat. But the worst part, law enforcement is already aware of the deal. Moments later, patrol cars arrive, and sirens pierce the air. Jason knows it's only a matter of time before he's caught. He abandons the package and darts through the labyrinth of containers, trying to lose his pursuers. The camera tracks Jason as he runs through narrow corridors, pursued by shadows of police officers. Jason is trapped. Victor's men watch from the shadows, ensuring the plan unfolds perfectly. Victor has always stayed above suspicion, using pawns like Jason to avoid responsibility. Now Jason is caught between two enemies: the police, who see him as a criminal, and Victor's men, who won't let him leave the port alive. The screen fades to black. Only the sound of Jason's heavy breathing and the distant wail of sirens remains. Narrator: can Jason find a way out? Or is this his final move in a game where the stakes are life and death? Scene 4: the camera shows Jason entering a dark warehouse where the deal is about to take place. The time has come. Jason, with a heavy heart and anxiety coursing through him, arrives at the location. It's a massive warehouse in the industrial zone near the port. The air is thick with tension, impossible to ignore. Waiting inside are three men in expensive suits, their expressions cold and calculating. Jason's hands tremble as he hands over the package, hoping it will all go smoothly. But this moment marks the point of no return. A sudden burst of police sirens. The music turns intense, and the camera cuts quickly between chaotic scenes. The police surround the warehouse. Sirens blare, and shouts fill the air. Police! Get down on the ground! Jason realizes it's a trap. Amid the chaos, he sees Victor's men trying to flee. Gunfire erupts as the police engage. The warehouse becomes a scene of pandemonium, shouts, gunshots, and the crashing of falling crates. Jason ducks behind a container, feeling like it's the end. But then, help arrives. The camera shifts to Chris storming into the warehouse with a small, well-armed team. They are prepared and determined. Narrator. Chris had learned about the setup and, knowing his friend was in danger, decided to act. Using old connections, he orchestrates an ambush on Victor's men. The firefight begins. Victor's men are caught between the police and Chris's team. Amid the chaos, Jason finds a way to escape. He watches as Chris provides cover, firing back at their attackers. Shots of the firefight, flashes of gunfire, men falling, and the police struggling to control the situation. Jason, in a panic, runs out of the warehouse. He doesn't know what happened to Chris or the others. His mind races with fear, despair, and guilt. He's managed to escape, but at what cost? The firefight at the warehouse leaves many casualties behind. Chris risked everything to save Jason, but was it worth it? Jason chose to live, but with that choice came the burden of guilt. Questions echo in his mind, haunting him. Could I have done things differently? How many lives were ruined because of my mistake? Leaving the scene, he carries not only fear for the future but also the weight of a conscience that will never let him rest. The camera lingers on Jason walking down an empty street, his head bowed. The warehouse is empty. Police and medics gather evidence and count the dead. Victor's men are scattered, but the boss himself remains at large. Jason has escaped, but can he ever escape himself? His life will never be the same. The screen fades to black, and text appears, "The price of a mistake is always higher than we can afford." The camera shows Chris in handcuffs, being escorted out of a building. Chris is arrested. He's charged with excessive use of force during the shootout, even though his actions saved his friend. Police interrogate him, pressing for names of those involved. Who was with you? Who planned this operation? The investigator demands. Chris stays silent. He decides to take full responsibility to protect Jason. His gaze is cold and resolute. I acted alone. You'll get no other names from me. This decision changes his fate forever. The camera pans slowly over Victor's abandoned office. A half-finished cup of coffee and a smoldering cigar sit on the desk. Meanwhile, the underworld begins its own reckoning. The deaths of Victor's men and the botched operation ignite a wave of revenge. Days later, news breaks that Victor, the boss, has been found dead. His body was discovered in a car on the side of the highway. Police suspect internal gang conflict. But for Jason, it means only one thing: the threat hasn't disappeared. Someone new will take Victor's place. The camera shows Jason packing in his small apartment. In the corner, his mother sits, frail but grateful. Jason decides staying in the city is too dangerous. He uses the remaining money to cover his mother's treatment, then buys train tickets to take them far away. His mother is hopeful, but Jason knows this escape is only temporary. He hopes to start a new life, but deep down, he feels the past will never truly let him go. The camera lingers at the train station. Trains arrive and depart. Jason stands with his bags, his mother seated nearby. Finally, the train arrives. Jason helps his mother onto the platform. He glances back one last time, hoping it's the last he'll ever see of this city. But just as he steps onto the train, his phone vibrates. A message. One short sentence that freezes his heart. Debts aren't forgiven. We will find you. Jason realizes, the game isn't over. Jason stands in the train doorway, his face tense, his eyes filled with fear. The train starts moving. The camera slowly fades to black. Narrator. He left the city, but not his past. Debts always catch up to their debtors. This is only the beginning.